Luxury brands have never fully aligned to the potential of TikTok and how it can connect and grow with their current and new audiences. So today, let's talk about it. So why have luxury brands never really adopted to TikTok as a platform? Don't get me wrong, there are a lot that are doing it very well, and we'll get onto that later. However, most luxury brands in all industries, from fashion to homeware to automotive, have never really fully adopted TikTok and always been hesitant to dive into the platform, explore it, and build it as a key channel within their marketing. The most obvious reason for this is its low quality content. TikTok is UGC, user generated. Predominantly, there is more high production content on the platform now, but generally speaking, the platform is more low quality, and often premium or luxury brands don't align to that standard of content and want something that's higher value and maybe higher produced and maybe feels and reflects more of their brand. The second reason is the audience. TikTok is known for being Gen Z, younger audiences, and that is changing, but predominantly speaking around the world, particularly in the US, the UK, those bigger markets, the platform is still for younger audiences and they still exist, but that shouldn't be a reason, in my opinion at least, why we don't market on the platform and make use of its discoverability and its way to connect with new audiences. The third reason why TikTok has been more difficult for luxury brands to adopt to has been because of the threats and the legal action against the platform, which has perhaps prevented more premium or luxury brands investing in a channel that in a couple of years' time might not have existed if that continued. That threat still exists today, and we don't know whether or not that's going to continue, particularly in the US, or that's going to change. But for now, I still believe there's a huge opportunity for brands in luxury, in premium, to really invest and discover whether TikTok will work for them. Now, I remember in 2014, 2015, when brands on the luxury end, on the premium end, any brand was not adapting towards Facebook ads or Meta ads, or even looking at Instagram as a key channel to market their brand. And we all know how much that's changed. Do I think TikTok has that same potential? I'm a little bit unsure. I think that it's never going to necessarily overtake certain industries and certain markets, but I still think it's a very key lever for luxury brands to pull to connect with audiences, to have that level of discoverability, but also to really deepen the way that they communicate with new and existing audiences. I really think that's where TikTok fits within a marketing strategy. So what audiences are currently on TikTok in key markets like the UK and the US? Generally speaking, when we talk about luxury brands, we're often talking about high net worth or ultra high net worth individuals being the key audience for those brands. TikTok has said very openly that those audiences are growing. However, they are a lot harder to track within the platform because they don't have the level of data that, say, for example, a channel like LinkedIn has in terms of audiences, being able to profile them on their net worth and those variables. However, we do know that premium luxury brands are having success with finding those audiences and actually communicating with them very effectively. Yes, TikTok is still for a younger audience, but the way we look at it is that's also the future. There's going to be a big part of that where in 10, 20 years time, from a digital marketing perspective, with platforms like TikTok and all the platforms and channels we use today, they're going to evolve massively in this time. And if luxury brands don't adopt into these younger demographics and find ways to communicate them in that 5-10 year time horizon, that's maybe not going to be an option for them to find those audiences again. They're maybe not going to have that chance that they have today. The other thing when it comes to marketing is we're always thinking ahead. If you market now, you feel the impact in 6 months. That's often used within the digital space and any marketing industry, really. TikTok is very much like that. It takes a while to build up a connection with those audiences, and that's something that's really got to be thought about, because there is not really the potential of post to TikTok as a brand, have massive variety, sell a lot of product. That does happen. It's rare. It does happen. Has it happened lots within luxury? I would argue no, but it has happened for brands. But what it does mean for premium luxury audiences is investing now in a channel like TikTok will have massive upside in the future, of course, but it is about being consistent. You will be able to find, as an audience member and as a marketer, countless accounts set up by brands that have been used in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 on TikTok, had a few videos, had a bit of content, and just not posted ever since. I think that is so damaging, particularly within premium luxury. And I think having that consistency on the platform, being part of the conversation, is really, really important to think about. So to summarize, audiences, yes, within the platform, high net worth and ultra high net worth, those audiences are growing. Yes, the platform still is a younger demographic. The other demographics are growing. I personally don't think that the older demographics, i.e. 45 to 60, is going to be a huge audience within TikTok. I just think the way that the channel interacts, I think the way that it connects, it's never going to be its key audience. It's always going to be a slightly younger demographic. And that was the same with many channels for a long period of time, until things like Facebook started to age and younger and older demographics came into that. You know, you're always going to have this element of a younger audience within social that's going to exist. But it doesn't mean that the high net worth, the ultra high net worth audiences aren't on those channels. There are so many examples of huge brands, whether it's automotive or whether it's fashion, growing and connecting with these audiences. And they have not done it overnight. It's been a process of building. It's been a process of building that audience through, not caring about followers, caring about the content, making sure you're giving value, making sure you're connecting, making sure you're building brand as well, not just posting random stuff that's a trend or, you know, going to an audio player or anything like that. You're actually building content that resonates and connects, particularly within that luxury space. That is very, very key to when you're looking at a channel like TikTok as a new opportunity for your luxury brand. So what is the opportunity for luxury brands when it comes to TikTok? What can be done? What can we achieve here? I think if you're sat there as a marketing manager or as a founder, you've got to understand where TikTok fits within the bigger opportunity. TikTok is a very relaxed channel. I don't think it's going to move very far away from that. What I mean by relaxed is the content is not very intense. You don't have longer form stuff coming through. It's still stayed in short form, even though you can now post longer form content on the channel. It's not become a YouTube where it's sort of docu-series from brands and that evolution. It is still very much short form at its heart. Yes, imagery's come into that, but it's still adapting into that short form kind of capabilities and what the content people want to see. And I think short form tends to be relaxed. It doesn't tend to be in depth. You know, if you're building a social ship series as a brand, you're not going to use TikTok to necessarily distribute that. Equally, TikTok isn't what Vine was in 2016, 2017. It is still needing to have some levels of depth, but the most important metric when you're thinking about TikTok and when you're trying to understand how to make it work is content retention. Building content that has high retention for luxury brands. So 1 minute video, high watch percentage, not just a 15-second video that's fired through. Still great depth of content, still content people want to watch or people want to resonate with as a luxury brand. That is the number one goal of the channel. That is how you grow. That is how you find new audience. That is how audience also come back. And that's also how audience convert. They don't convert from 5-second videos. I've not seen it happen, and I think particularly within luxury, it's very hard to convert that. I guess the question is how do you increase retention? And that's the biggest thing for luxury brands, is how do we get people watching this content that isn't short-paced, fiery, that isn't trend-led, etc. We look at it in a very simple way. It's about giving value. And when I say value, I'm not talking about giving them an insight into necessarily how your product was made and a long series around that. We look at value in 4 ways: educate, inspire, motivate, or entertain. As long as your content for a luxury brand is doing one of those 4 things on TikTok, you have the biggest opportunity. So often as digital marketers, we make content that we like and we want to see, particularly for TikTok. And I've seen this countless times when it comes to kind of team content and office content. I personally don't get it, and I don't see why you would kind of interact with it, in my opinion. But I think when it comes to luxury brands, what they really want to see, what audiences really want to see, is they want to see how they can connect with the content with it actually being valuable to them, because there is so much content for them to choose from. It's got to give them value, and that value can be educate, entertain, inspire, or motivate. One of those 4 things has to happen with that content, and that will give you the biggest chance possible. Don't make content for you. Make content on TikTok for your audience, what they want to see, not what you, the marketing manager, wants to see, or you, the founder, wants to see. Make content for the audience. For luxury, that is the most important thing to get across, because if you don't do that, you're never going to have hope in hell in making TikTok work as a key channel for you. With that in mind, one thing I will say, particularly for luxury brands, is it's not 2014 Facebook. And what I mean by that is the ability to post a lot of product content, thinking that it's going to get high reach, thinking that it's going to really connect with audiences. Those days have gone, and TikTok is no different from that rule. And you've really got to think that, yes, we can include product and content. Makes complete sense. And of course, what we're there to do in terms of marketing brand and building awareness. But we're not just posting product all the time. There are brands doing it, and I have an example of a brand that is doing it a lot. But they're at a level now where they probably can do that in probably a more efficient way than a smaller or a growing luxury brand could do. but also they've been on the platform for a period of time and they have so much content within the platform. And that's really key to think about. If you're looking at TikTok as your channel, you also want to look at how you're within the channel. So not just your account and what you post, but how other people are posting you. And that's not just influencers, that's just not creators, that's also audiences. If you're a watch brand, for example, you might have a presence within the platform outside of your account. And that is an indication of true growth, in my opinion, within social platforms, is it's not just measuring the account you run as the brand, as a luxury brand, but also the amount of coverage you have across the whole channel itself. Luxury brands have also shown, I guess, with the opportunity within TikTok that has changed in the last 12, 24 months, is that high production content can work. You see it a lot now within TikTok ads, which you can go and see on their library and research other brands you might want to be referencing to, competitors or people in the space. But high production didn't really work at the start. It's now starting to work, and there are countless examples of that happening where high production, high value content, a couple of years ago, it just wasn't the place within TikTok. That's now changed, and that's a good thing for luxury brands because, as I said at the start, we want that. We want that kind of representation within the content so that our audience know that that reflects our values as a brand and what we might look like. So that's now working, which is positive. But now it's also about pairing that with what we call lo-fi. Or UGC. So lo-fi content being shot on phone, being shot on low-end kind of equipment that feels very natural and organic and feels very immersive, and obviously using user-generated content from audiences, from creators, from influencers to bring that into the overall content planning and content strategy. So the opportunities within TikTok need to be thought about. It's not about just running into it and diving in deep. I think that overall discovery is still huge within the platform, and there are countless brands where they're going quote-unquote viral. And that virality really comes from what I was saying at the start. It's high retention within content. It doesn't just go viral because the black box of an algorithm on TikTok has decided it to. Luxury brands don't just go viral because they pump loads of money into ad spend. They've got the content right. It resonates with audience. That's the equation. That's the math. That's all you need to think about when you're making this content for a luxury brand. If you go against that and make a piece of content that you really like as an individual, or your team really likes as a team, but your audience don't like, you will get 200 views on TikTok. That's what happens. That's how this works. So really think about, if you want discovery, which I think still exists within TikTok, think about we need to resonate. And to resonate, we need to give value. So let's go for some examples of who I think is doing TikTok very well within luxury. I picked two brands. Both of them are big. Both of them are huge houses, if you will, within the luxury space. But I think both of them are doing something very different. The first one is Loewe. Now, I'm a big fan of Loewe. I've mainly shopped their fragrances. That's me as an individual. I love their collaboration with On Running. I thought it was so unique, special, different, kind of gave something that was unexpected, which I think all collaborations should be. But they have approached TikTok in the most organic way to the channel. They have not changed anything about the platform, if you will, to try and suit them. They've just leaned in massively. And as we look through some of the content here, there are so many examples of different things they're trying and testing. And I just think that this is what, in the luxury space, we need to do when it comes to TikTok. It's not, let's go make some TikTok trends, post 10 of them, and if it doesn't work, give up. And I know that Loewe have got so much kind of a head start being the brand that they are. But if you're within their space, if you're within fashion, there is lots you can take from what they're doing. I mean, this example here, like this is a behind the scenes how it's made. I mean, you never really would have seen, I think before, from Loewe on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, like this really kind of like authentic behind the scenes on the tomato. But like, you would never have seen this. Like even the brush, the glue, like the interior of the product, like the way they're stretching that leather, like you never would have seen that before. And arguably it's a risk, right? If you're in the marketing department of Loewe, you're probably thinking, right, people are going to think that this is low quality. People are going to think that we just like put this together in 2 minutes. Like there are so many risks. But actually, I mean, this piece of content has got 2.5 million views. Now for them, that might not have converted to any commercial value at all. I think it would have done. And I think the awareness of it would have been massive, because I personally didn't know Loewe did that product before. And I remember seeing that piece of content thinking this is suits the platform. It's the kind of thing I would have seen there multiple times in the past. in terms of like the style of content that's being produced. Felt very authentic to it, but also as an insight that I wouldn't have got anywhere else. So that's a reason why I would have followed Loewe and interacted with more content, because I know I'm getting that level of exclusivity, and exclusivity is one of the biggest words that's associated with the luxury space. One example, that's just one of many, and you can see a lot here. There's behind the scenes on photo shoots, and they've done this. They haven't just like filmed like, you know, a random behind the scenes mashup video, which I think a lot of brands do. They've gone behind the scenes. They want to give it some insight. They want to give that interest. They actually did like 4 or 5 reels from this one photo shoot. One of them did 7 million views. The rest did a couple of 100,000. But they're not just doing like mashups behind the scenes. They're actually trying to bring some creativity to it, but they're also trying to bring in trends. Now, the word trends on TikTok and luxury for me is a sticking point, because I think that brands just often jump onto trends that have nothing to do with their brand, thinking that if we do this trend, we'll get loads of views and we'll sell a load of product. Like, it's just not how it works, like, at all. But what they've done is they've gone on the disposable camera trend, which, for those of you who don't know, giving out disposable cameras to people, they would take photos, and like there was a creator doing it with people going on holiday at an airport, go and take loads of photos, he'd develop it and then kind of create a piece of content around it. And it was really popular, and it's a nice idea, and it's super creative. They did the same thing behind the scenes, built that content, exclusivity looks, but also like, I would never associated a Kodak disposable camera with Loewe on a behind the scenes shoot. I would have thought, as an audience member, it was pristine, it was clean, everything was super controlled, and like, you know, didn't have that approachability. But I feel connected. I feel like I'm involved, and also not being forced any product from Loewe in this content. There is no buy now, there is no order yours today, there is nothing. It's just pure content, which is what audiences want to see. Loewe is a great example. There's so many examples of content here. A lot of it's done very well. Some of it hasn't done as well. They've used TikTok kind of creators as well, so you'll recognize some famous faces there. But as a very luxury brand, they've adapted to the platform, and they consistently make content that just feels authentic and feels connected. And I'm not surprised that it's doing as well as it is. There are so many examples of brands in luxury that have tried to do this and not made it work. Take away the fact that they're Loewe. If you're in luxury fashion, I would be really looking at these guys as a big key, a big jewel in the crown, if you will, of someone who I'd take a lot of influence from. If you're in the marketing team at Loewe, well done. I'm a big fan. Okay, moving on to another brand, Richard Mille. For those that don't know, in the watch space, huge watch brand, been around for many years, one of the biggest in the world now, kind of had a lot of growth over the last sort of 10 years in particular. But what they do is very different. So I think there's 2 things to note here. The first thing is, I genuinely believe that followers mean nothing on all social platforms, just completely being honest with you. But just for some metrics, the Loewe have done 2.5 million followers, they've done about 50 million likes, and they've gone authentic to the platform, stuck with it, kind of put a lot of time and investment into it. Richard Mille, 100,000 followers, under 400,000 likes. Now, for those that don't know, what I was saying before about presence within platform, I would say Richard Mille are massively more present within TikTok outside of their account than Loewe are present outside of their account on TikTok. So for me, Richard Mille is probably more dominant on the TikTok platform than Loewe. But with their own account, the route they've gone down is pure quality, is pure high production. They obviously sponsor quite a few Formula One teams now, but they've got the sponsorship with Ferrari. They've got numerous athletes they also sponsor. They've obviously had loads of collaborations, like with Pharrell Williams, for example. But their approach to TikTok is high production. And this is what I was saying at the start, is that high production does work, and you can make that work for the channel. You've just got to get it right. And I think they're a great example of someone who gets it right. What they do, though, is make sure if they're going to go high production, they go very high and make sure that that standard is incredibly well set and thought through. They don't really apply to trends. One thing they do apply, in my opinion, so like this piece here, with this incredible piece, this kind of underwater effect. There's some silly comments, and that's what TikTok's going to be, to be honest with you. And, you know, unfortunately, this is what you get with a slightly younger demographic. Like, some of the comments are just completely ridiculous. This is just pure sort of ASMR, slow, aesthetic, very high production, trying to bring some creativity to it. And I think that it could be pushed more, in my opinion. I'd love to see it be pushed more a little bit, but this still works. And if you're in the watch space, this is a route you can go down. They've still achieved a lot of traffic, but what they've done within TikTok is make sure that they're present outside of their account. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine that's been a part of their marketing strategy, is if we're going to go into the TikTok world, let's make sure we're present. But if we show up there and people know it's coming from us, there is a level of quality associated with that. So there's two routes you can go down. There's two different options there. I prefer the Loewe one personally, but the Richard Mille one works. And I think there's potential within that. So what is the future for luxury brands when it comes to TikTok? I think there's two things that have to be considered. The first thing is, I think that the discoverability and the depth of connection with audiences will continue to exist. So I think it's a very key channel to invest in and spend time in. The second part for me is, I think with the moves in live shopping, which we haven't touched on too much in this video, but the moves within commercial impact for luxury brands in TikTok, I think is massive. I believe that there will be a world where fashion shows, product releases, product announcements will be streamed within TikTok, and direct conversion, checkout, commercial impact will be possible. So incredible, fashion show from a fashion house. I think there'll be a version where you can buy those clothes as you watch that live. There is a version of that. You could do that today, but it's not happening. But I think that's a massive version that will continue to evolve. And I think that'll be a big part of commercial value in the next couple of years. But I think that the live interaction, particularly within luxury, for some people buying into luxury, whether it's automotive, watches, whether it's jewelry, whether it's fashion, for some people it's not a big purchase. If you're a high net worth or ultra net worth individual, it's kind of spontaneous, and you can make those purchases. However, a lot of the luxury industry is made up of people purchasing something because it is luxury, and it's something they're saving for, it's something they're investing in, whatever that might look like. And with that comes hurdles, with that comes questions, with that comes Q&A. What's the size of that product? What does it come in? What's the shipping price? What's the quality? What's the story behind the brand? All these questions come through, and I think that's where TikTok will serve a purpose, is the ability to communicate with audiences and customers in the luxury world, and have them give you, I guess, value as a brand, because you can find out what the hurdles are for them to come across. But also as a brand, I think having that connection with audiences will come massively from TikTok. I think that kind of vibe, if you will, hasn't managed to happen within Instagram, and hasn't managed to happen within Pinterest and platforms like that. TikTok is so raw and authentic, and I think that's the opportunity truly for luxury brands within the channel. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Send us an email. My email is in the description box down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been useful. If you're a luxury brand and you're not on TikTok, I look forward to seeing you there. If you get on TikTok, let me know in the comments as well, because I'd love to see what we're doing. Thanks so much, and see you again.